heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
Welcome back to Common Folk.
The Common Folk Podcast. The podcast for the people, by the people.
That's right, we are the people.
Is that our tagline? We don't have one.
I don't think we have one. We should get one.
We don't. No,
Come
we
on.
don't need one.
We don't?
Mm-mm.
All right, well,
The
you're
name-
wearing the Common Folk hat.
The name says it all.
Huh?
True.
All right, yeah.
Maybe that's the tagline. The name says it all.
Ooh, see?
Oh, see, I just was saying how he's so good at
I
this.
know.
I'm not
Boom.
good at it.
Look at that.
Yeah.
What you got over there?
You
Your bush latte?
Yep, a little blue yummy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the blue yummy. Not the blue rocket. Didn't I on accident say that once?
Blue Rocket.
Didn't I say that?
Probably.
I don't remember. Well, guys, not guys. Andy, did you know it was this guy's birthday over here
I heard.
this past
I heard.
weekend?
I saw some fun posts.
The big 4-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not as fun as the big 4-0, but
No,
you'll take it.
there was no party.
Oh,
I mean, he just got some presents and dinner,
Sure did.
cool.
lunch. I
Yeah.
guess we went to lunch with your dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You made some yummy food because you love to cook.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't want to cook. I don't want to cook on my birthday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to go out.
Yeah,
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Well, I was hungry.
I know, but I gave you the option. I was like, what do you want to do? You know how many times we asked him what he wants to do? I don't know.
You guys put us in that corner. Like,
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And then when I say something, it's like, yeah, no.
Mm.
I feel-
that's
I-
him.
I feel
That's
like I get that
him.
a lot.
He does that to me.
Oh, really?
I know what you're talking about. Yes, he does.
Well, that probably not going to work out.
Totally.
I
He's
don't know
like,
about that.
oh, so what do you want to watch on TV? And I'll say it, and he'll be like, okay, so let's look at this one, and like keeps going. I'm like,
Right.
I just said what I want to watch.
I just said One Tree Hill.
He's quiet over here.
I'm not watching that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, are you going to do anything fun Friday
Maybe.
for the St. Patty's Day? Definitely got to wear your green.
Yeah, the table's set. The
Okay.
table is set to have a good time because, St. Patrick's Day, Ashley has it all lined up where the kids are going to daycare. And so we're going to have the whole day to ourselves, which we haven't had in, I feel,
Boom. Don't be coming
years.
knocking on your door.
yeah. What?
White flags up.
Yeah, right.
Gonna have your tie hanging on the door handle.
Yeah. Is that the sign? Is that what you guys do over there? The tie?
No. But, I mean, there's got to
You
be
guys just
something.
leave the door open? Like, no. So I don't know. We're kicking around ideas, seeing if maybe we want to go downtown Omaha. We
Okay.
used to do that back in the day, and that was fun. But we're 41 as well. So
You guys got all day.
I think so.
What you run a betting show?
Uh-huh.
What's the line on what time you go to bed?
Ooh, I don't know. Like you have those stages of impairment, and if we get an Uber, that kind of opens the door for even more fun.
But do the kids have to come back home is my question, or someone have
Yes.
them overnight?
So I mean that is going to be a little bit of a hiccup there, but yeah.
Okay.
So I think 5:30 is like the cutoff. Like you better have them picked up by 5:30.
Yeah.
So and we'll probably take them in. I don't know, 8, 9 a.m. So that's a pretty good window for us.
So
to have
basically,
fun.
you're gonna come home, you're gonna pick them up or whatever. They're gonna bring them to your house, and then you're gonna give them iPads and turn the TV on and go pass out.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's got to happen. Put
'Cause
on
that's
a movie.
that's what I would do if I started
It's
drinking on St. Patty's Day in the morning or whatever.
All right. Well, what are you guys doing?
9 a.m.
Yeah, come on.
No.
We'll get a little
Well-
short bus and tour the city or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that sounds fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to work.
Hmm.
The boss says I got to work.
Well, you guys have a vacation coming up or something?
Yeah. We're going on fun
sure
vacation next
do.
week, so we do have a lot of things to tackle. Just before, you know how it is to try to get out of town. Ugh.
Yeah.
The thought of getting out of town is almost stressful. It's almost worth not going.
Yeah.
Because you have so
I
much
feel you.
shit to do beforehand, and then when you come back.
My big week was last 2 weeks where we did all those state basketball games for the state tournaments, boys and girls. So yeah, that was a pretty good hectic run for me, and always being gone. So this will be nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll probably just end up going out to eat somewhere that has corned beef, cabbage. Pretty boring. Have some green beer and call it a day.
No, it'll be good. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
What do
Sounds
you
fun.
have on the agenda today, mister?
Got a few things. Before we get started, let's get into our sponsor of this podcast, stockandrod.com.
Yeah.
What is stockandrod.com, man?
What? I've never heard of this.
I'm glad you asked, Andy. So, Stock and Rod. Stockandrod.com. This is a company that we created. It's like Farm Focus 2.0 here at the shop that we're in. Cool new outdoor brand. So we've got a bunch of apparel, shirts, hats, gear, new designs, great logo. Our graphic designer, Sarah, put all that together. It looks sweet.
It does.
There's a lot of really cool things that people will be excited to wear and sport and live the brand. So that's coming up. The brand as well, similar to Farm Focused, is tackling design and production and fulfillment for social media type brands, YouTube type brands that are in the outdoor space. So hunting and fishing. We're hoping to get some of your favorite ones on the page and support them.
Yeah.
We've already got a few.
Andy's
the home of
Chasing the Dream
Boom.
TV.
That's
Yep,
right.
the
That's
official
right.
Clothing line of Chasing the Dream, and and it's kind of fun now that we are monetized on YouTube. We've like kind of clicked over, and it just kind of grows itself. It's like a natural law of the way things are. The more you have, the more you get. You know, it sounds kind of messed up, but you think about it, that's really the way it is. So now we're seeing a little bit of growth. So we needed something like Stock and Rod. So timing was perfect.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So and it's a fact. You know what we do here. This facility, this studio, all this equipment was all provided to us by way of what Stock and Rod and Farm Focus do here at this place. So they truly are sponsors of the Common Folk podcast.
Yeah.
So go to the website, check it out, stockandrod.com. Check out some of the new gear. We got a lot of new stuff coming here in the next couple of weeks to the site. Try some stuff out. You won't be disappointed.
And, we have already touched on it. Ben's a wordsmith.
Yeah.
He's really clever that way.
Totally.
I want to break down the brand name for everyone. It's a play on words. Gun stock and a fishing rod, and the logo encapsulates all that in such a cool,
It is
simple
so cool.
way. Yeah.
Sarah did
Yeah.
such a good job.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, you got it.
awesome logo. Yeah.
Yeah, so and that saved you a little bit of time, Andy. No editing for the commercial.
There we go.
Boom,
Yeah.
there you
That's it.
go.
Don't need to insert a commercial.
I'm
okay.
always thinking about you.
Yes, thank you. my editing woes.
You're welcome. So Andy will be releasing this podcast here within the next couple of days, and a very relevant topic right now. And one of the reasons why we want to release it so quick is because it's kind of fresh in people's minds. Is this whole thing about this big bank collapse with SVP's Silicon Valley Bank. So if you're listening on just about anything, whether it be you watch the news, you listen to the news in your vehicle, you're on Twitter or wherever you get your day-to-day stuff, you've probably heard about it.
Even if you only live by Instagram, you can't dodge this. It's all over Instagram.
Unless
it's
you
everywhere.
live under a rock, like me.
Okay. So what? You don't know?
No. I mean, no, I really have not.
Just what we were talking about in like show prep.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I don't know. They're
So I
both
think-
looking at me like I'm idiots, guys, but
it
I'm
is-
just being real because
Yeah.
that's just how this works, that I'm not
Well,
going to
no.
act like I know when I don't know.
It is boring in a sense where we're
Yeah,
just
this
talking about
isn't
finances
super
and
interesting to me.
and banking, and you've already heard it before. And one of the first things I thought when this crash started happening, funny how it hits the major headlines Friday afternoon.
Oh, for the
like
weekend.
I kind of like when I first heard, I'm like, oh, isn't that funny that
Yeah.
the big headlines come out Friday afternoon? Like if you run a sports franchise, I always go back to like that type of stuff. And your player got caught wielding a gun or doing this, beating his wife. You always make that press release Friday afternoon at like 4:30, and then just let it.
Yeah, then it fizzles out.
Yeah, let it.
So
that
we-
would-
But this isn't fizzling out.
So we probably shouldn't release a podcast on Friday afternoon.
well, if we don't want anyone to hear it,
Right. Yeah.
I think, yeah, exactly.
So I think, yeah.
So
and I mean,
you're going to have to do
some.
some explaining
Yeah.
of it.
And I listen
it down.
to a lot more like kind of news outlet type things than you do, but there's a lot of folks I'm sure listening that are probably in the same boat as you because this is still relatively fresh.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of information coming out, and I think a lot of like the big media outlets are really trying to figure out the best way for them to present it to keep themselves out of hot water, just like they normally do.
Yep.
But we'll get into it. We've got some specifics, some things that we looked up, kind of a culmination of all the different things that I've been hearing and the stuff that I know to be true. And I just want to put a common folk spin on this thing. I, number one, want to present folks with the facts and what all went down in this timeline.
Yeah. And
then I want to put our commentary on each one of these areas and what people, in my opinion, really need to be thinking about. So to start, again, it's this Silicon Valley Bank is what they're called, regional bank.
Right off the bat, sounds fancy.
Yeah. Well, they got some fancy clients.
Pretty neat name.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well,
Yep,
just
they got
saying.
some fancy clients. They try to call them. They try to present themselves as not being big, but the fact is that this is the second largest bank failure in U.S. history. So they're pretty big.
So there is a little fire to the smoke, I mean,
Right. Yep.
something happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this bank a little bit and kind of what led up to this. And I don't know if we've talked a whole lot about this in the past or things I haven't said, but to make it clear, I hate money. I mean, I hate it.
I don't think we've really talked about this.
Yeah, not to
Andy's
that
laughing.
Well, one of our sponsors that's been just a terrific sponsor for our football and basketball games, is Currency, and they're a newer lending company, and they call themselves Currency, and they specialize in lending money to people that need a new tractor, that need a new backhoe, things of that nature. And so whenever Brandon does that reader during a game or during a timeout, I'm like, I love Currency. I could use some more right now.
So you have to explain why you say that. I know, but why do you say you hate money?
There's a lot of reasons why, but I just don't like. I don't like that almost everything that we do or that we're forced to do is based on the fact that it requires whatever we're doing requires money. Something else that we want to do requires money, so we're going to do this so we can get it or whatever. And I have seen time and time again, and will continue to see for the rest of my life, money being the reason why someone else steps on the back of someone else's neck to get something else. You know what I mean? It's just like it brings out the worst in people, and I just don't like it. I just flat out don't like it. And there's a lot of things going on with it. I mean, you look at things like a truck today, a nice 3/4 ton diesel pickup that a lot of people listening to this need for whatever reason costs $80,000-$90,000.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, to 1997, I remember my dad buying his first one, and it was $35,000. And I remember at the time I was thinking, holy crap, man, a $35,000 truck.
That's more than you make in a year.
Yeah, and now they're $50,000 more. It's just like this is what keeps happening. To me, money is we're on this treadmill that we'll never get off of, and the speed is always going to be increased, and we're never going to get anywhere. Like people feel it gives people such a false sense of things too. People feel like, oh, I got a raise at work, and look how much money I'm making, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, but look at what your house costs. Look at what your car costs. Look at what your groceries cost. Look at what your eggs cost a few weeks ago. I mean, all these kinds of things. Everything goes up proportionally, and it ain't coming down. It all just feels like such a rat race.
Yeah, you touched on a few things there, and going back to the sports. But one that's personal to me. Shortly after Ashley and I got married, Joanne Kappas, your old coach, she built a dynasty there at that high school.
Right.
And she was on a run of 3 straight championships. And her girls that she had from freshman year, this would have been their senior year, so they're going for a 4-peat. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, they got it. They're number 1 ranked. They have been for 3 years now. She was, quote unquote, forced into retirement because she clicked over to this spot where if you don't retire now, you're going to lose so much money on your pension, your state-funded pension. So, and they had this big old meeting. They went to this seminar that shows you that if you don't retire, you're going to be losing, It was something wild, like $11,000, $5,000 a year or something. So she was, quote unquote, forced into giving up her entire career. You built up to that point to have your best team, to get the four-peat. You know, these girls that you had all the way through grade school, middle school, and now this will be their senior year. She retired the year before that. And of course, they went on, one stayed under a first-year head coach. And then that dynasty would have continued because it's not like she just stopped, you know, caring about the grade school development programs and things of that nature. So then she had to move to a different school, a different district. Once again, just fleecing the system, basically. But it was all dictated over money. And I'm not saying she had to give up volleyball or this or that, but I just thought it was insane. I'm like, I don't care that you're losing, but it's also not my money.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not losing $10,000 a year or whatever it was. I'm just throwing that number out there. I have no idea what it was. But it was so substantial that it was a non-decision. It was a non-decision. She had to do it.
Yeah. And I think that happens probably with so many people
Happens
in
all
so
the
many
time.
different situations to what you're saying and what you're saying. So
I just think that the system and the way it all works, it's all so flawed. And, you know, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, let's just say our business that we run here makes $100,000 in a year. Okay. And that's so essentially that's what our family makes. I would be fine if it only made 10, as long as the groceries came down proportionally, the house came down proportionally, the cars came down proportionally. There's no reason for us to be dealing with these big ass crazy numbers. And stuff just gets out of control. And that's what we're going to get into when we're talking about this topic here, some of these big numbers that are even hard for me to even like picture in my mind.
Oh, it's really difficult when you start talking billions and then they start throwing around numbers like trillions. Like, no. You know, like, your mind can't even comprehend that. It's such a big number.
Right.
But hold on. Maybe now it will.
Oh, that will help for sure.
There we go.
definitely.
That will help. So let's get in. We got we'll get past the point. Everyone knows I hate money.
Okay, next.
Silicon Valley Bank
Silicon Valley
and the
Bank.
demise.
Yeah.
Lay it out there for us,
So
Ben.
to start with, this particular bank had $175 billion on their books. So you'd consider that a pretty big bank. I mean, it, at a minimum, that's what they had on there. Some numbers are up to 250, but 175, 200, whatever. It's a 40-year-old bank, so they've been around a long time. They've been putting in some work. Again, like I said before, I think I'd said this before, second largest bank failure in U.S. history. So it's something to consider. And these guys keep calling themselves not big. Like, we're not
Why
that big.
do they say that? They want to remain small?
We're going to get into that.
Okay.
So when this bank started 40 years ago, early on into their inception, they started getting heavily involved in venture capital. So they decided that they were going to go down that route of essentially giving very high risk loans to entrepreneurs to help start their businesses, to fund whatever project it is that they have or whatever the case may be. So what you need to understand about this is that this bank has had this high risk culture from early on. Most banks don't do this kind of thing.
Because normally it's just a person.
Well,
right?
Yeah, like the sharks or whatever.
There's just a number where a bank, it doesn't make sense. We're not going to take on that risk. There's no need to, or it's not smart to. I do want to say it was a great regional bank. They were small when they opened in the 80s, and also they're in Silicon Valley Bank. Those were the companies around them, those startups that were in software, that were in computers, that were in IT. So I think it's pretty cool that a regional bank stepped up as a kind of a venture capitalist route and was investing into those companies and hit on enough of them. That too shows how good they were for, let's say, up until 2016. And that's a key turning point I'm sure you're going to bring up. But that's how a regional bank should work. Like all these banks here in Nebraska, for the majority of them that we work with, they're investing in local farms, local ranching operations, big, small, whatever. But those are the cards you're dealt and you have to play with. And that's the cards that Silicon Valley Bank was dealt. Like they're doing these crazy things with Apple computers. I thought Apple was fruit. Like this is how far back that goes. And if it weren't for them stepping up and taking some risk, Silicon Valley, it wouldn't be what it is.
Sure.
You know what I mean? In a way, I admire this bank up until a certain point.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, because I appreciate someone investing in an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But I don't know where the story's going, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. Go ahead.
Yeah. So on that topic of them deciding to invest in venture capital, that became such a big piece of what they were doing. The individual who was running that venture capital arm was then moved into running the whole bank. So it's just painting this picture of showing you where their head's at, where they like to spend their money. Again, they're high risk folks, and you play with fire long enough.
Yeah.
So is the one person that started this still running the?
I don't know about that.
Was it sold, switched? I just didn't know if it's.
I mean, it's been 40 years, so I
Okay,
imagine
so he's long gone.
Probably moved on,
Yeah,
and
there's a few
been
names
passed
here.
on. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lot of things that we're not going to touch on, but
Okay,
there's
sorry.
a lot of stories, true stories, facts about some of the people that are running this bank, some of the things that they're involved in, what has given them kind of a leg up with regulators and so on and so forth. But I just kind of have the high points that I think help the common folk understand what the heck's going on here and what do I need to know.
Yeah.
So as we go on, they've got that focus. The next thing that I want to touch on that starts out painting this picture again is there's this regulation called Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank says that once a bank gets up to $50 billion in assets, they become subject to additional regulations and requirements. So when your bank gets that large, now all of a sudden, essentially, you've got the government climbing up your ass.
Yeah. The feds are in there looking at your books, making sure you're not cooking them all the time.
Yeah.
And more than likely, they are cooking them.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but
Okay.
it's also set up as a safeguard against all their clients. Like, we're not going to allow this bank to put themselves in such a predicament that they won't be able to insure at least the $250,000 that we're insuring. Like, they're covering their own ass in a way here. So it's kind of like a thing that has to be there in order for the government to be FDIC, which you'll talk about that. They have to be there to make sure that these regulations are put in place. Otherwise, like a venture capitalist type banker might keep taking on too many risks. And like you said, you keep playing with fire, eventually you're going to get burned.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it gets to a certain size where it's like, the big tree falls hard. It gets to a certain size where it can more easily fall and wreck a lot of people. So the government decided, hey, when you get to this number, we're going to start playing along with you and we're going to figure out what you all got going on.
Okay.
So that $50 billion is an important number because around 2016, SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, started approaching $45 billion, and they knew that they were growing to this point, and they knew what they wanted to do. So they put their people together, they put lobbyists together, not just them, other banks, other people in the industry, and they all go to Washington, and they all start playing games with lawmakers and saying, hey, this $50 billion, it just kind of feels like it's a little too low. I feel like that number needs to be a little higher, all with the motivation of keeping the regulators out of their building.
Well, and loosening the reins. Like, look, man, this legislation, you set that up way back in the 30s. Nothing like that ever repeats itself. Come on.
Yeah, and I don't know when it was set up, but either way, they knew that they were poised to do some big things as far as numbers go.
Yeah.
And they did not want these regulations. So here comes 2018, and Trump comes in, and he's presented with some of these different proposals.
Yep. Timing was just impeccable too. Like, we
100%.
need this country run like a business again. We need to take down red tape. We need to allow people to make money again.
Yep.
So like a perfect table was set for like a lobbyist to just kind of slink in there and get this thing happening.
Yep. So in 2018, when this was presented to Trump, he said, heck yeah, let's go. Like, let's either they raised the limit, or I don't know what they did, but that 50 billion number went away. So I'm sure it was raised to something else. I don't know what it was raised to.
Poof, it's gone.
Now they take the reins off. Now these boys at SVB go, let's go.
Yep.
So between in 2016 being around 45 billion, by 2020 they were at or over 200 billion. So that's a huge jump in 4 years.
So when you hear news clips and senators and congressmen, on their soapbox saying, my question is, where are the regulators? Where's the regulation? And you're like, well, you knew. Your
Right.
people are the ones that signed off on this
Yeah.
lobbying.
Yeah.
Like, why are you feeding us this? Like,
100%.
And if you don't know, and if all you do is just get a snapshot of what's happening,
Yeah.
you're going to be like, yeah, where is the regulation? Well, you're the assholes that lifted the regulation just because your wheels got greased a little bit. And when I say your wheels got greased a little bit, who knows?
Right.
Silicon Valley Bank might have slid over $5 million or $30 million to a certain decision maker. Like, I don't know. And to be fully transparent, if I'm one of those guys and they say, look, we're cool. Look at this. Since 1983, we've been cool. Here's $30 million. Just allow us to keep doing our thing.
Yep.
We're going to be good. We're going to be good, brother.
Use this towards your next campaign.
And
you know.
or just I put in my own personal bank
Yeah,
account.
who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's generational changing wealth right there. Just for and in your heart of hearts, you're thinking, you know what? They have been good. Maybe they have earned this little bit of a leeway here. So like I can see the other side of it. And if I'm the person, it's basically a bribe. I hate how they also call it lobbying. It's a bribe.
It is. Yeah.
Totally, it's a bribe.
I might take the bribe, though, is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not greater than Jesus here. Like, if someone's offering me $30 million and I think, you know what they're saying now actually does make sense. Like, good
You can
God,
start
man.
convincing yourself of anything.
Hell yeah, for $30 million or whatever the bribe was, like, man. So, like, it's just this crazy. And back to you hating money, the whole system is built like a house of cards ready to fall.
Yeah, it's
like,
whack.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a good system.
Yeah, and again, another good point that you made there, because this is what a lot of people are hearing, is some people coming out, officials or whatever, and saying, well, where was regulation? How was this allowed to happen? And as the common folk just listening on the radio, you agree. You're like, yeah, what the hell? Like, people are just looking away. They're not paying attention to what's going on here. But really, when you find out, oh, this was by design.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And I'm mad at Joe Biden, but actually Donald Trump's the one that passed this legislation, and I was cheering for it.
Right. I mean, so that,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
So another deal out there is the FDIC. So you mentioned it earlier. You go into any bank, as you walk through the front door, you'll see on the glass FDIC insured. And a lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah. I was just going to say, obviously, I know my money's insured, but
Yeah, it just
what
makes
does that
you feel
mean?
makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So what that means is that the feds insure the money in those accounts up to $250,000 per account. So as long as you have $250,000 or less in your account or in assets or whatever at the bank, if the bank collapses, you will recoup that money even if the bank can't pay you. The feds will get you that money.
Yep.
So that's a rule that's in place. And it's important to understand that because as we get into this story, over 90% of the accounts at SVB are over $250K.
Jeez.
So over 90% of the folks there involved in this bank have a lot of money at risk if this bank collapses. But as we get into it, they should have had a lot of money at risk, but maybe they actually didn't.
Right.
And that's one of the things we're going to get into as well.
Sucking it from both ends.
Right. And so there's a lot of it too isn't just, we talk about, we just think about ourselves like, oh, I'm an individual. I got a checking account there and a savings account there. I don't have $250,000 in my accounts. I never have.
Yeah.
But a lot of what they have going on there too is businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And SVB, once they got this regulation lifted, basically, they were able to further leverage themselves and go to companies like Roku's one of them. They're the streaming service.
Okay.
With a little box.
Yeah,
They've also got into making smart TVs.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing banking with these 5 other banks? Just put everything in one account here. We got interest rates down at 0%, 1%. This is easy. Like, you just get rid of those loans. So they convinced a lot of investors that they were in on it too. Don't get me wrong here. But to basically put all their eggs in one basket, which should be a red flag. So even though we know this is FDIC $250,000 and we're asking you to put in $250 whatever, $25 billion, like that's hard to wrap your mind around. A checking account with $25 billion in it.
I mean, like, Yeah.
And the only thing that's insured is $250,000.
Right.
And companies and individuals were doing this with Silicon Valley Bank. That some of those accounts were insane.
Yeah, and it just is crazy to me because I always think, well, shouldn't you be investing it? But I mean, I guess they need some of that, but also, is it just for show?
Well, no, the thing is when you're a business, so you take Roku as an example, they had $500 million in SVB sitting in an account.
$500 million.
Now, businesses, especially when you get that size, they need to have liquid cash. They need to have cash to be able to go to the bank and pull out and buy what they want to buy. Like maybe they need to go buy a new building, or maybe they need to buy a new fleet of vehicles or whatever.
They need the liquid cash too if they want to take out a bigger loan. They need to have that there to show.
Right. Yep. So that's part of the deal, and that's part of the reason why some of these big businesses have that money in there.
But normally people diversify.
Well, if you're talking about individuals, but not necessarily
but businesses.
I mean, businesses, that's a long conversation, but
businesses should have multiple banks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
and
going other
businesses
places.
invest in other businesses and own portions of it and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is, yes, you do need to have a fair amount of liquid cash. So
and diversification too.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just have all $500 million in one account or whatever in Silicon Valley Bank. It should be spread across a few.
Yeah, that does seem crazy.
And I think when you're dealing with that much money too, you need to be hyper aware of the health of the financial institutions that you're dealing with, and what are they doing with that money? What are they investing in? How do they have themselves leveraged? So on and so forth. I mean, there's people that get paid really good money to keep up with things like that, and some of these people should have known better. They just should have. And to that point, I didn't take this note down, but it was one of the things that I had heard. There was some rating agency that just a few days before this thing collapsed gave this bank a top A+ rating as far as their health goes.
Well, that's the same as Enron. Everything was positive about Enron until it freaking collapsed.
Right. So it just gives you, a real life glimpse into this is all smoke and mirrors, dude. You have to figure this out your own.
So somebody actually controls the narrative being put out there.
Oh, shocker!
Right.
No, and when the dominoes started to fall, and maybe we'll start getting into that, was Wednesday afternoon. When things started to get a little shaky.
So
that would have been March 8th.
Yeah. So what actually started everything as they take it back is the interest rates start going up. So the Feds start increasing the interest rates. We're in this inflationary time. The Feds want people to quit taking as many loans, quit spending as much money.
An oversimplification of it is, in order to get a hold of inflation and tamp it back down, you got to raise your interest rates. That's an oversimplification, but that's basically how it works.
Yeah. Okay.
And the basic idea is lower demand, increase supply, then prices of things start coming down.
Yep.
That's the basic idea. So, but the thing is that when you take a bank that makes their money off of the fact that they need people to keep taking loans, and people have decided, oh no, now we're not going to buy as many things. Now the bank starts going, oh shoot, now I'm making less money. Now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So that starts 2022. The loaning becomes tighter. Big businesses, all kinds of businesses, start saying, we're going to wait this out a little bit instead of what you were talking about with the cash earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, I got $500 million in my account, but it's very cheap for me to take a loan to go buy this other new building I want. So I'm just going to take a loan. I'm going to leave that cash alone. I might need that for something else. But now things change where they go, I got $500 million in my account. It's very expensive for me now to take a loan because the interest rates have gone through the roof.
So
I'm going to start using some of this cash.
Gotcha.
Until these interest rates get better. So this is exactly what happened. So these businesses start going to the bank, back to Andy's date here, and start saying, I need some cash.
Yeah, give me that cash, man.
And they start pulling it out. So multiple people start pulling it out. So then SVB realizes, shit, we don't have that much liquid cash.
No, we don't.
But we have a lot of money tied up in bonds and other investments. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn those into liquid. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to sell those, or we're going to call them. We're going to get that cash so that we can give the cash back to the people who are trying to withdraw it. So that's pretty simple. What happens is they decided to sell a bunch of their long-term treasury bonds.
Right. Very safe, very good bonds that are 20, to 30-year notes.
Right.
So very secure. But once again, they didn't diversify. They just bought a big ass, like $21 billion worth of long-term bonds.
Right. So they decided, all right, we need a bunch of cash. So they decided to dump like $21 billion worth of these things.
Yep.
And because of how they had to go about it.
In a 24-hour sale.
Yes. And because of the current financial climate, they lose $2 billion on that deal. So essentially, let's say it's 21. So they go to the Treasury and they say, I'm calling 21 billion of those bonds back. Mm-hmm. Or no, actually it would have been, they would have said, I guess it would have been 21. Let's just say it's 21. And then they say, okay, yeah, you bought all these for 21, but right now they're only worth 19.
19, yeah.
So you get 19. Mm-hmm. And they go, okay, well, I got to have the cash.
Yeah, I got it because my big boys are asking for it.
So they're fine with
Roku wants it.
2.2 mil.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that happens, and people hear about that, and they go, hold on a second. And this is where kind of more of like, instead of the hardcore numbers, the emotion starts coming in. People start going, if this bank is willing to take a $2 billion hit right now, that tells me that something is wrong.
And something was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people that took notice were ones that it mattered to. Like, oh boy, you convinced me to put all my assets, all my holdings into your bank, and you are up against such a wall that you are willing to take a $2 billion loss over just getting your cash back, cash that I thought you had available. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, dominoes start to fall pretty fast and in a big way.
Yep. So the public hears about that. The people that have their accounts there hear about that, and they all start going, you know what? Before I get screwed, I'm going to go get my money. Mm-hmm. This is where it starts, what they call a run on the bank. And this is when banks are doomed. So a bunch of people, a bunch of account holders come running and want to get their money. They want to get their money to the tune of $42 billion total dollars.
Dang.
And all they had to work with was about $20 billion at that
Something
time.
like that,
Oh,
yeah.
jeez.
So the bank is like,
We don't have it.
we don't have it.
Yeah.
So the government steps in and takes them over and starts taking control of this thing and starts trying to clean up the mess. And this has all happened within the last few days here.
And something that gets confusing here, we're talking about a $2 billion loss. That shouldn't be that big of a deal when we're talking about their holdings that are over $250 billion. Well, not really. And what can they show for? It was closer to $20 billion. So that's what you got to look at is out of the $20 billion that they actually have here, they're willing to take that type of a loss, $2 billion, just so they can pay back their clients who are just asking for their money.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to happen, to add to that point, is that they do still have multiple investments that are not liquid cash, and that's where the government comes in and says, all right, we're running this thing now. You guys made a stupid decision.
Yep.
You just lost $2 billion. We're going to start making the decisions for you. We're going to start calling these bonds back. We're going to start calling these investments back, and we're going to figure out how to maximize all this so that we can distribute it to your account holders.
I mean, are they going to take their houses and cars too? Because
well, no, they're not going to.
Well, I'm just saying these people that are working there loaning all this damn money.
Yeah.
No, they well, if are those people going to get punished? I guess is what you're asking. And the short answer is no. But
Of course not.
Maybe, who knows? I guess we'll see. But that's just not usually the way this stuff works.
It's not. But
if someone wants to dig in,
but if it was common folk, it would. But
and you may hear, may have heard about this or will hear about it, but they've already shown that a bunch of these people at the top of this bank were selling their personal stock in the bank leading up to this. These people
They
obviously
knew then.
saw something coming.
Yep.
They were there was bonuses getting paid out early, all these kinds of things. So they were kind of cleaning out the drawers.
You don't get to be a CEO, a CFO by being a dummy. And they knew as soon as those interest rates started to go back up, they're like, okay, the gravy train's over. Get off right now. Yeah. And that was just another red flag that went out to a lot of these high-profile investors in that bank. Oh, they already cashed out. Oh, they had to take $2 billion out against their own money. They're willing to take that kind of a loss just as a short-term fix. So that's why you started to see this run where people like Mark Cuban and all these, these influencers online, which that added a whole dynamic to it.
Yeah.
That's why you started to see that run on it.
So there's a couple things that I want to touch on there. We, first of all, a bank, whether people know it or not, a bank failing. This isn't anything new. No. I mean, we heard about this happening in 2008. It got real crazy then. Mm-hmm. This started happening again. People were worried that this was going to snowball and turn into 2008 again. It hasn't yet. It doesn't look like it's going to. But if you look back over the last, 30, 40 years, whatever it is, there's only been a couple of years that you can find documented that some bank somewhere did not fail in the United States. And it was probably multiple banks somewhere. So the point is that this does happen.
Yeah.
The point also is that when those ones failed, they were held to the rules and people got burnt.
Yeah.
I would say people would probably lose money, lots of money.
So back to what we were talking about with this FDIC. So that's the next step here. So what I say earlier, FDIC insures the accounts at $250,000. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Over 90% of their accounts have more than $250,000 in there.
Right.
So what happens? All these people who own these accounts, and a lot of them are big name folks, like Andy said, Mark Cuban, among many others.
People that own wineries and distilleries and cool stuff.
They don't want just
Valley.
$250.
People who have a lot of influence start going to social media, start going to their representatives, start going to their buddies that hold positions of power that can influence, and they start going, whoa, number one, I need all my money. But number two, you better figure out how to do this because this is going to affect the whole country. Like, if people start seeing, they start telling stories. Like, if people start seeing, start seeing this happen.
I just was thinking that word.
They're all going to run around. We're going to have 2008 again. There's going to be runs on everybody's banks. Like, you need to fix my situation so that the whole thing doesn't go crazy.
Yeah, like I am so important in my new app company.
Oh, of course. Yeah. All these damn people that have all this money anyways, acting all...
But to regionalize it, and that's why I used to like what SVB was. They're a regional bank that helped out businesses in the area. So like in, let's say, Nebraska, thing that would happen every once in a while. Let's say we have a 3-year drought. Okay, well, if this bank is loaning out to a bunch of farmers and then you have 3 droughts in a row to where you're not raising a good crop, well, now you're not going to be able to pay back the bank. Now the bank might have to fold. That's when the feds would come in and be like, all right, we're going to divvy this up best we can. That happens, like you said. It's not uncommon for a bank to get out over their skis and the feds to have to come in, shut it down, and then clean up the mess and try to get all the clients, the farmers, as much of that $250. Well, they'll get the $250 back, but if they can get back more, well, then great. Nothing's insured after $250,000, though. That's the key number.
Yeah. So the government has taken over this bank. They also took over another bank in New York that I don't know what the ties were, but somehow something happened there at the same time.
They're one of the lobbyists. They're part of it.
I'm sure. They had in one way or another. And they've got a couple decisions to make. They can either shut this thing down and divvy as many funds as they can and then tell people, hey, that's that. Insurance paid $250 plus whatever we were able to recoup. That's what you got. Yep. Or they can figure out a way to get every single one of these people their money back. And based on all of the pressures that they were getting and the whole social media influence and all that, they decide we're going to go ahead and take care of all of you.
Yep, we're going to bail everybody out.
We're going to bail everybody out. So an important point here is everyone automatically thinks, well, the taxpayers are going to pay for it anyway. It's coming out of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
It's going to be taxes, whatever. That's not necessarily the case in this particular situation.
Well, where is it coming from?
So what they decided to do was that they're going to use these FDIC funds, and they're going to make everybody whole, and they are going to recoup funds through this FDIC organization and possibly some other banking organization that all of these banks are involved in that pay into this fund. So they're going to take the money out of that, and then they're going to put special assessments onto these banks. So these banks are now going to be required to pay more into this fund than they had been previously to rebuild the fund back up. So it's almost like...
So now it's like the bank's fault.
Well, the banks are supposedly paying for it.
The banks are punishment. They're getting punished.
Right.
So, yeah, and let's just put 2 and 2 together. But to help people kind of clarify this a little bit, it's kind of like if, in our small town, in our small school district, even in some of the bigger school districts up in town, they decide to do a bond. And everyone gets, their taxes don't necessarily go up, but they could get a special assessment where, okay, now you're going to have to pay an additional $10 a month for the next 5 years.
Okay.
And then after that 5 years, it goes away. It's gone. It's kind of like a loan almost. So it's similar to that. So those
Yeah.
banks are going to have to pay this additional money for X amount of time. Now, you have to ask yourself, where do you think that money is going to come from?
Yeah, that's the next step I was
Yes.
taking.
Like, do you think the
Yeah.
bank's just going to go, oh, yeah, we'll go ahead and pull that out of our profits and make those extra
No, they're
payments, no
gonna-
problem?
Interest rate, like they're gonna.
Yeah.
It's
They're
gonna
just
be
gonna
us.
they're just going to charge more bank fees.
Yes,
You know, whatever the cost of whatever is going to go up. I mean,
absolutely.
of course, the
These
people are going to
hidden
pay for
fees
it.
that when we
What's-
balance your checkbook that you see.
Yeah. What's that movie, The Big Short, did
Mm-hmm.
such a good job of really trying to boil it down, and maybe they made it a little too slick and sexy and all that stuff. But Steve Carell had a great one-liner. I'm paraphrasing him here, but it went something like, "The wealthy screwed up, and the poor are going to pay for it." Like it's just what always happens, and it always does. And he knew it as soon as he saw some lobbyist walk out of Wall Street right in the middle of all that shit going down in 2008. He's like, "Oh, same old story."
Yeah.
Like no one's held accountable, and everybody's fine. And in fact, I feel, and Ben, I was talking to you beforehand, I think it entices slime balls to go ahead and break the rules again.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Going forward, God forbid this happens again. Are they just going to keep doing this? And like,
But
Why
they're-
wouldn't you?
then what's the
Right,
point of
yeah.
having the 250? You know, like honestly, if
well,
they're
the
just going to
point-
start
the point
bailing
is-
everybody out.
The point is that
Those are rules that we have to play by.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
when you're in Silicon Valley and you're some bigwig and you're Mark Cuban, you get to play by other rules. And
Exactly.
we see this across the board
Yep.
all the time, which is such bull.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It makes me like
And
so annoyed.
And I was annoyed when Biden and his buddies got on TV the other day and said, "And the taxpayers aren't going to have to pay a dime. The banks are cleaning up their own
Right.
mess." Like, oh
right.
no, they're
Yeah.
not. Oh, yeah,
the only way they can guarantee that is if they're going to go ahead and start digging into the actions of all these banks and make sure that their
Oh.
processing fees don't go up and their the fees to hold a checking account don't go up and
Right.
whatever. But that ain't going to happen. Of course, it's not going to happen.
No, you've already shown us on multiple levels now and through multiple different ways. Like break the rules egregiously, sell homes to people that can't afford homes, like they did in 2008. And not only are you going to get that parachute windfall of cash, we're going to bail you out so you get another one.
Yeah.
Well-
so what happens? All these people are getting their money. They're literally like getting their cash. They're getting,
Mark
and they're going
Cuban's-
then to
yep.
another bank.
Yeah.
Mark Cuban, Roku,
Like, what's the
they're all
next bank?
fine. They're fine.
Where are they going?
Who knows?
They're all going to some other bank.
So if I'm a bank that I started in the 80s or 70s and I've just slowly been growing the way a bank is intended to grow, and now that I know, wow, I could go from 40 billion to 180 billion in 2 years, break all the rules. All I got to do is grease a few people out there in D.C., and then when everything comes crashing down, I actually get paid off. All my
Yeah.
people get paid off, and we get saved, and all of our clients get taken care of too.
Yeah.
Like, why would you not break? And you could actually, like I was talking about, if someone offered me $30 million, would I do it? Well, here I can actually feel good about it. Like, yeah, even Mark Cuban gets taken care of. How about that? Poor little Mark was whining on Instagram. The Nation bought it, and he got his money.
Yep.
Yay. Freaking yay. But
It's true.
so why would this not happen again? Why wouldn't it happen next year?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it's gonna, but
Oh, it is.
There's
It
nothing
will.
stopping it.
yeah.
No.
So
just
they created a monster, basically. I mean,
yeah,
how do you put an end to this common folk, talk? Like how would
All right, I got
you
a
have
good
done
one.
it?
I got a good one.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
I know how we can stop this.
Okay.
And I'm taking a page out of Singapore's,
Oh,
the nation
okay.
of Singapore.
Uh-oh.
Let's hear it.
Their crime rate as far as vandalism is basically 0%.
Why?
They do public canings with a big frickin' cane out at the public square in town.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if you get caught spray painting a building or stealing a pair of sneakers, you get caned X amount of times. And this was the last time I heard about this, so it might have changed since then. But anyway, it hurts.
I'm sure.
It really hurts. This big old cane just whapping you on the ass. But also the public ridicule and you being embarrassed like that. I think they.
I'm not opposed to that.
But let's think about this for a second. So let's say I don't know how the hell Singapore works. Do they have like
I don't know.
They have some kind of government officials or whatever. Let's say
They
one
have
of their
to, yeah.
one of their officials, one of their leaders, goes and steals a candy bar.
There you go.
Does he get publicly caned?
I hope so. I mean, that's the way. That's how I
better.
think you maintain a 0% rate.
You're
Absolutely.
right. You're right. My point is that no, he probably doesn't. And not in your scenario, those individual folks on the street, they get their beating. In this same scenario in the U.S., the individuals in the small banks with less than $250,000 bank accounts, they're the ones that get burned.
Yeah.
Not these big dogs.
But that's what I'm saying. The big dogs need to take their beating. They
do.
need to get their
Yeah.
caning. They need to be ridiculed. And also, it really hurts. And like, we'll do crazy things to avoid pain. And probably playing by the rules is one of them. We might play by the rules if we could get caned.
And it would be really.
I mean, this is so barbaric and far fetched,
But hey, and it would be really simple, and not necessarily simple, but it would be effective for the government to come in and be like, "Hey, look, man,
Yep.
we're going to start digging through things,
You get
and
20
we are going to find where you made the decision to sell off your stock, where you made the decision to pay this bonus early." Or like this would be easy. We're going to timestamp this thing. We know when it was paid, and then also I happen to find an email that was a couple months earlier that you sent that said you knew something was going wrong. So here we have our proof of what
Yeah.
you did. Give us the money back. Oh, you don't have it? Give us your house.
7 canings if you don't.
There you go. Whatever.
love
Like
it.
they could easily go in and do these
Oh,
things.
yeah.
I mean,
It's
it
all
would
there.
take
It's all there.
a fine-tooth comb and a lot of work, but easily
But also
it
just
could.
it also paints that clear picture like you were a naughty boy, now you get your spanking. I mean, you're just going right back to the bare bones. I know this is a crazy idea, but shit, it's still being done somewhere.
And look to that point too. Like we all know, how do you raise kids? Kids are raised to have certain behaviors based on consequences and rewards. It's not any different with adults. It's like you asked, Morgan. What is going to happen to these guys? Nothing. So they are essentially being rewarded. They have no consequence. They will go and do it again. It's the same thing that a kid would do.
Yep.
It's pretty freaking basic.
It is
Yeah,
such
it is.
bullshit. I just don't
So
know where the end is.
And that's why
you
I
know?
thought of that basic
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah.
And I do think it would make a difference. I really do.
Yeah.
You're funny.
So,
yeah,
I mean, as
just
far as-
I don't know.
The public embarrassment would be worth something.
Yeah.
Drop your drawers. You're going to take your caning now.
I think Andy just wants a beating or something. And
No, I don't. No, I don't. That's why I play by the rules. I pay my taxes.
your eyes got really big. Like, no, I'm going to talk about everybody else, but I'm good.
Yeah,
No
I'm good.
caning for Andy.
I don't want a caning. It looks like
I
it
mean,
hurts.
I'm sure. I've never
Yeah.
seen this on YouTube, but is that what you're talking about?
No, I just it was in one of the case studies in college where they're looking at all these different governments and how they deter crime here versus there, and how our crime rates in America
okay.
are. And part of the reason was, well, there's no punishment for kids. They go to juvie, and they didn't have a PlayStation 2 at home, but at juvie,
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
And now they don't have to go to school. They just get to stay in their cell and play PlayStation all day. So you're actually rewarding their bad behavior.
Gotcha.
At home they didn't get 3 square meals. Here in prison they do, and a PlayStation. So, well, okay, why does Singapore have like 0?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because if you get caught, you
Because they got canes.
got caned. Big ass 10-foot cane. Whack.
Oh my gosh. Oh geez. Well, this is a lot.
Yeah, the point.
So I'm sure there's lots of little things that you're leaving out too. Like you said, you
There's
can't
a ton.
get into.
There's a ton. And the whole point here is just to kind of hit on the high points. I think people are hearing a lot of noise on whatever media outlet
Well,
it
my
is.
phone's sitting here, so it's picking it up. I'm going to see all of this now, just so you know.
That's true.
Yeah, you will, yeah.
Okay.
But I think a lot of people will probably just be wondering over the next week or two, like, what is all this about? What are they talking about? What really happened here? And that's just what I wanted to do. I want to give a quick breakdown, a timeline, the common folk perspective.
Yep.
It does, obviously everything is a little deeper than what you see on the surface, but this is pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
They made some bad decisions. The banking system, as Andy said earlier, is set up like a house of cards. It cannot handle a run. And when runs happen, these places shut down.
Yeah. And furthermore, like, you're fine. Your checking account is fine as long as you are playing by the rules and you have $250,000 or less in that account. After that, it really depends on what type of influence do you have. Can you get your money back? Can you not? Probably not. I mean, just bluntly speaking truth, you are not Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
You are not this dude that owns a 200-year-old winery in Silicon Valley. So you need to diversify and play by the rules. Otherwise, you will get caned. You will get spanked.
What I want to know is, so all those employees at the bank, then obviously they're out of a job.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening
You know,
with the
Yeah.
organization.
it's just interesting.
Yeah.
So now I'm
is
going to have to
interesting.
dig in
Yeah.
a little bit. And
Well,
if I turned on the news, obviously I'd hear this, but I don't love the
There's a
news,
lot
so-
of things happening
Okay.
in banking and in finance right now because of those interest rates. And this is one of the first
Yeah.
big national stories. I mean, we know people in the industry. We know people personally who
Yeah.
have been affected by this, who have lost their jobs, and when I say by this, I'm talking about the interest rate increases because of the fact that not as many homes are being bought, not as many loans are being put out. It's just
Yeah.
it's just how this system works.
do you remember Tier 1 Bank?
The name sounds
Remember-
familiar,
yeah.
but I don't know.
They were real big. They were another regional bank here in this area. And when I went my first year of college, I needed to find a bank, to do business with. And they had a location in Auburn. They had one in Nebraska City. They had a few in Omaha, Plattsmouth. So I thought, all right, I'm going to start banking with them. And then it just carried over because I ended up living here. So then it turned into my main bank. Well, Ben, to your point, in 2006, 2007, they got off track. They weren't dealing with just farmers in the Midwest anymore. They started, their new guy, and I'm grossly simplifying this,
Yeah.
got involved with some housing projects in Florida.
Okay.
And then, well, that crashed.
Oh, shoot.
So what ended up happening, they sold off and it became Great Western Bank. Well, here recently, that turned into Interstate Bank. So this type of thing happens all the time. It's just that usually it's not even a blip on your radar.
Right.
And for me to, I had to ask a million questions, like, why is it not Tier 1 anymore? And it was just, once again, in the World Herald article, that's our local newspaper, published Friday afternoon. Tier 1 tanked because of this, but don't worry about it. It's being bought out by Great Western that's based out of Sioux Falls.
Everyone's moving on.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
No big whoop.
Don't
No big
worry,
whoop.
your account's just changing names. Everything's going to be the
Yeah.
same.
You have less than 250,000, right? You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
Well, as always, the common folk give you the straight story, and the common folk spin. So
Yeah.
do with it what you will.
It's good information
Yeah.
for
Yeah, just
to have. I mean, it's kind of interesting to me who doesn't obviously I didn't know about this, but I'm surprised that you are interested in this since you don't like money.
well,
I don't like money, and it
So it
It-
infuriates you?
it makes me very mad, and
Yeah.
it confirms for me
A lot of things.
more reasons why I don't
yeah.
like money.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Gotcha.
well, and also this is why I think podcasts and things like what we're doing really do matter because people are tired of getting that snapshot of a senator telling you this, that, whatever,
Always.
grandstanding and just being packaged into a minute and a half, 90 seconds. Where here we spent over half an hour actually breaking it down, putting a little history to it. Now, if you're at the bar, at the barber shop, you can hold up a conversation, actually have a little understanding
Yes.
as to the moving parts of what's happening
Thank
and
you.
who ultimately is going to pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, because honestly, that is a huge deal why I don't want to listen to the news because it's just their narrative. And I would like to dig in, but I don't always have the time to hear both sides and then make my own opinion. So
Right.
this is just the facts. And
Yeah, and obviously my opinions are all bad when I'm saying let's cane people. So
I
we
mean,
can-
we like to put our little spin on it, of course. I mean, right?
We're gonna need
But-
like one of those legal disclaimers
Yeah,
at the end.
totally.
Like
Oh, shoot.
Yep.
Yeah.
someone talking really fast.
Andy does not speak for Common Folk.
The Common Folk Podcast does not support caning.
Yeah.
Unless you're in Singapore, don't mess around.
That could be the tagline. There you go. Back to the tagline.
Full circle.
Full circle. Common folk does not support caning.
Yes.
All right, boys. This was fun.
All
It
right.
was.
Well, Are we done?
Yeah.
I think so.
Turn it off.
Do it.
Or we're done? You guys
Peace.
done? All right.
Later.
See you.